offended man over here. Sorry about that. But it seems like during cuffing season, I'm good if you're not really ambitious, right? If you don't have a lot of plans, if you're always available, if you're not really trying to go off and solve the world's problems, I'm good because I want you to come over, let's watch a movie, let's have, a meal together. I want you to be readily available. But honestly, after cuffing season kind of ends and I'm ambitious, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trying to solve the world's problems, if you all of a sudden all you want to do is sit around and watch TV or just hang out, I don't like that. Like, I am not going to be attracted to someone long term that's not ambitious and that's not trying to, go off and do something and is always just available at, when I'm available and when I want him. So that sense of laziness and lack of ambition,
So it works during cuffing season.
Oh, during cuffing season, yeah, because I need him to be available.
So the opposite of that is you can't be mad if I'm hitting the streets once it gets warm. So
that's another.
No, so it's you may assume he's a homebody or the person is a homebody, but I think that attribute of being a homebody takes it. That's a good thing. You could be like that, but if you are someone that likes to hit the streets and do things, and that continues on in the summer, that compatibility at that point may cause a flaw.
That's true.
So I'll start it from the other end. I think one of the things that happens during cuffing season is, I said this before, maybe your standards for a mate have dropped a little bit, but then once you break out of that, you're in the spring and summertime, and as everybody knows, that's wedding season. That's when all your friends are getting married, and you need someone that you can go out and take and show off to your friends, and not be like, yo, who is this whack broad that Barrington showed up to this wedding with? So I think that the attribute is just, when you're in cuffing season, you're indoors, you don't need to be quite as outgoing or quite as personable as you do, and, holding conversations and being able to be interesting and be funny. You don't need to do that quite as much as you do in the summertime when you're out amongst the people in these streets.
I was gonna say another one would be if you don't date during the winter. So a friend of mine just recently told me that she was told that the brother doesn't date during the winter, and so if I'm cool with being cuffed and being your boo thing for the winter, but come summer we gotta have an open relationship because I do like to date at this point with multiple people. That could be a issue for a relationship.
Was that a C? Is that one of the C's?
Okay, interesting perspective again. Thank you guys. All right, so we're gonna move on to circumstance. So there's quite a few things that change from the fall winter season to the spring summer season in terms of circumstances. I mean, some people have summer Fridays. It's easier to commute. You're not wearing as many clothes. You're just generally in a better mood. Like whatever the case. What are 3 things in your life that change from the fall winter season into the spring summer season, and how do those adjustments and circumstances affect your relationships, your romantic relationships?
So the 3 things I noted, one is more travel. In the summer you're more likely to go on vacation for the weekend and things like that. And it's hard to kind of start a relationship when you're not really around and in town during the weekends, because that's most of the free time you have. It's a little easier to do in the winter because you're less likely to go places. You're more confined to your area. The second thing is more spontaneity and plans. I know that, in the summertime when friends are like, yo, we're out on the rooftop, yo, we're cooking out, yo, we're whatever, I'm much more likely to go do that than I am in the winter when I gotta make plans and know that I have to leave my house in 20 degrees. You can't just spring that shit on me and expect me to be all good. Like, I need to know. Because it's just more spontaneity and more willingness to go explore and do things when it's warm outside. The third thing, this may just be me, it's probably not just me. Third thing is sundresses. make it really hard to stay cuffed up. When the sundresses come out, shit gets super real.
Did you see my answers?
Oh.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
What's in the sundress?
It's what's in the sundress.
What's in the sundress, and seeing multiple versions of that and being like, I like that one, I want that one, those shorts are nice too. Like, men are so
All of
special.
those things. She understands what I'm saying. It may not be the best answer, but that's one of the things that I factor in because everybody's in a winter coat. It's easy to be well behaved. When you go out, when you're out at the beach, when you're out at cookouts, all of this, and there's different things going on, it's a little harder to stay cuffed.
It's his perspective. It's his perspective.
I was on the wrong panel. No, I'm just kidding. I respect your opinion. It's interesting because even when you're saying that, I thought about the three things I think about are focus, commitment, and ambition, right? Because I talked about ambition before. That's a big one. So I think when you really think about summer, you're right. Like, people are traveling, it's more laid back, you're more relaxed. You're not necessarily thinking about, taking on all the problems, right? You're not necessarily, even with work, people have a more relaxed attitude and more cavalier attitude about how they're approaching work and jobs, everything. And then fall is kind of like, just like school. It's like we're in that school mindset. So we kind of start over, let's get everything together. So I think it's that ambition, but then it's that focus as well. When you really think about the cuffing season versus your summer months or your springtime, it's like there's so many things warring for your attention or competing for your attention. And so now how do you choose? Like, okay, it's all about priorities. How are you prioritizing? Even what's in the skirt, you need to prioritize what you're going to look at versus not. Never mind. What you're going to look at versus not. He's like, no, I'm good.
He's like,
I'm looking at it all.
She is shorts. I didn't think about shorts. It's a whole other option. You think about something else. But no, like, seriously. So when I think about, your ambition, your focus, and then the third one is commitment. And you talked about it in terms of the different options that you can see that are visually appealing to a man. But honestly, it's just your commitment in terms of anything, right? What you find interesting or what you want to put effort towards or what you want to put your resources toward or what you prioritize. And I think after cuffing season, most people struggle with prioritizing the right things, or they struggle with prioritizing you because you were just something that they happened to do at a certain time in their lives. It wasn't because they really chose you, they settled with you. Right? And so when you settle with something, I'm not going to put my resources, my effort, my attention, my financial, my money towards you because I settled for you. So I think to me, am I making any sense? I think to me, that's what I think you kind of compete with in terms of those different seasons. No?
I don't even want to follow that. That was amazing. And so the crazy thing is, Barrington, when you say your answers, we had some time to think about it. Those were the first things that really came to mind for me. So I don't know if it was a man thing, but I think you also said a lot of things that was quite eloquent and made a lot of sense. And I guess that's the root of some of the comments he was saying. So when I even looked at some of the things that I jotted down, for me, the first thing was, you have more of a social lifestyle during the summer. So that speaks to your commitment. So what is your commitment? What is your priority? And then I looked at it and it was travel. So, ditto to what was already said. And then it was dress and grooming. So of course what you're wearing, you may have great summer outfits, but when it comes fall and winter, it sweats and things like that. And, you don't necessarily pay attention to that. And then grooming, you may not be trying to get your hair done or groomed as often. For both people, partners, I'm bald headed, I got to shave every 2 days, but wintertime, I'm letting everything grow out. So, I realize those are shallow things, but for me, a lot of times what cuffing season is, or when I hear it, I do hear it from I look at it from a shallow type of perspective, because a lot of people are, like you said, lower standards, or, you're just really finding someone that you could physically stand or be around and have some lights and chemistry, but at the same time, it may not be anything really deep. And so, it seems my answers were quite shallow when I thought about it, but at the same time, I think you really touched upon the deeper aspects of it.
So I just want to point out that there are no right or wrong answers. So, I mean, all of the answers are good answers, and I think that's the point of the 4C's book, is to start a conversation. Because when you start into a relationship, I think the going assumption is that everybody does things the way that you do things. Everybody believes what you believe, and it's very interesting to hear from briefs. I bet if we ask everybody in this room the same questions, there'll be all different answers, and that's the whole purpose of starting this discussion. But anyhow, we have one last question. It's on choice, which is the final C, and we'll let each one of the panelists answer, and then we'll get back to our music and cocktails. So a couple that cuffs together stays together, yay or nay? Can you choose your way? Can you make a choice to choose your way through any of the complications that happen as a result of starting a relationship during cuffing season and trying to successfully transition out of cuffing season? So I'll give that to Torian first. Okay. Seeing how you started in cuffing season.
No, I tried to start in cuffing season. Well, so the funny thing is, so I'm gonna answer yay. You can, because so with my situation, I tried. It was in January 2006. I tried to cuff her. Was whack. I didn't, I was terrible, she says, and like from the standpoint of, she did not like our date or whatever. And so for me, at that time, it failed. But then when you fast forward to a different time, 3 years later, and you look at the circumstance and when we met again, and then at that point it was summer, and she came in with a nice little sundress. And I remember like the whole vibe, my spirit was more of, at that time, would have been one of a mindset like, oh no, this is just a quick little date, we're just gonna have a good time. And it turned into something greater. But it was, a change in circumstance for me. I had an open mind, and I also had a choice. And the choice for that was, I want to say it sounds cheesy, but like a weekend, I already knew I would marry this girl. And so it was, it's one of those things where if something starts out of cuffing season, you pretty much know fairly quickly if you're going to pursue something, if you want to, there's normally at the end of the day, there's no, like you said, everyone's situation is different, but for me, it becomes a gut, and that's not something you can really measure. It's just really more of a feeling, something that you know.
All right, so my answer to this question is yay and nay, and it really all depends on how much you're willing to commit. I think that my general thoughts on relationships are that, a lot of times people are in great relationships and they hit it off right away and they can go on and they know within a week whether they want to get married. But then there's other times when I think that people aren't quite sure, especially living in New York. I feel like there's a pressure to kind of cohabitate more quickly than you would in other cities because of rent. Like if I'm spending 3 nights, 4 nights a week at your house, don't make no sense. We both paying this $1,800 a month, whatever. But I think that you need to be careful of that because the familiarity and the togetherness gives you a false sense of commitment and closeness and caring that may not be there otherwise. So it could be absolutely real, and you could meet someone during cuffing season that, you just happen to meet them during cuffing season and you know that this is it, but you also need to be careful and make sure that it's not just this artificial closeness that happens. A perfect example is, everybody here has a friend who has, been a very good friend and then they moved out of town. Now you're not quite as close as you once were, and that has nothing to do with you changing as a person, with them changing as a person. It's just that now that you don't kick it every day, you're not quite as close as you have been. And I think that happens in friendships, it happens also in relationships. If you're not spending a bunch of time around this person, then maybe the spark isn't as big as you once thought it was. So as long as you've shared how much you want out of your cuffing season relationship, then I think that you can make it work. But if it is just something that's purely, out of convenience, then it's gonna fall apart. Maybe not right away, but eventually, because that's not a solid foundation to build upon.
I agree with that 100%. I think that last statement really sums it up. the book talks about, you guys haven't read it, the book really talks about in that fourth C how a lot of people try to choose their way forward. And Bianca and I have talked about this at length over the years, because some people have compatibility issues, they're in relationships that span oceans, and they have circumstance issues, or the chemistry starts to fade, or whatever it is, or maybe there's only chemistry, but they try to say, you know what, maybe I can just choose to be with this person because this is a great person, or he has a lot of potential, she has a lot of potential, right? She will make a great mom. And they want to choose their way forward. And the book really gives you a solid understanding of why it's the fourth C and not the first one, second one, or third one, and why all of the C's matter, but you can't just choose your way, fast forward through all of them, right? And so when I think about cuffing season, a part of me wants to say that no, you don't get to choose your way out of, a problem that was in cuffing season, but you can't choose your way out of any season. You can't choose your way out of any problem that exists in a relationship, no matter when you met and how you met. Like, when I think about my background in market research and consumer insights, it's not about the how the relationship started. Who cares? You slept together the first night, you met online, whatever. It doesn't matter about when the relationship started, whether it was cuffing season or spring season. What really matters is why. And if you're in a relationship with somebody where you're constantly thinking that I settled for you, that I gave up something for you, it'll never work. It doesn't matter the how and the when, right? It really only matters the why, because all I'm doing is looking at him across the table thinking, I really don't want to be with you. The only reason I got with you is because it was cold outside and you had on a nice scarf, and I thought maybe it's something nice up under that scarf, like whatever, because I don't have a comparison to sundresses, so it's hard. But in all seriousness, right, you can't choose, period. So you said, what, the gray sweatpants?
I said the medium sweaters.
Oh, you see how I went to gray sweatpants. I hope you're not put it on, take it off here. But no, right? You guys get my point. Like, you can't choose your way forward out of any of it. So I think, I want to say no, because you and your wife have been together for 5 years. There's something solid there, right? The chemistry is there. You knew there was more than just, oh, she looks nice in this dress, so I'm going to be with her and have children with her. For you to want to have a child with her, there's something deeper. So it didn't matter what season it was that you guys met, or that you met X number of years or months later. It was really something more substantive that caused that relationship to move forward. And so I think the thing is, you didn't just say, I like her, I'm a cuffer, and regardless, I'm going to have babies with her and marry her. And so I don't think anybody should ever do that. Does that answer your question? I think
All right.
So.
And so with that, we want to say thank you to our three panelists, Barrington the Bachelor, Renita the Relationship Expert, and Torian the Married Guy. And just one more point, the book is for sale over here, thanks to Ricardo, our book salesman. Thank you, babe. Thank you. And shout out to DJ UN on the ones and twos. All right, thank you very much. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for the panelists before we close out? I thought that the ones who had questions got them sufficiently out as we were discussing. But if anyone has a burning desire to ask any one of our panelists a discussion before we exit out, no, they'll be mingling around, so you can ask them. But the whole point, as we are discussing here, is to start a conversation about relationships. If anybody didn't know, I just learned apparently sundresses be winning. Okay. Take from all of this discussion. I need a second book about sundresses. Okay. No, but thank you guys so much for all the support. I really appreciate you coming, and thank you to the panel and to everyone.
The takeaway is sundresses. Get your life. Be winning. That's your get your sundress game tight. Cold weather phenomenon. Also, do people in California not have cuffing season?